Hello, everyone. My name is Jorge Garcia. So, for our group, I'm going to be presenting Chapter 5 Mature Independent Trajectories for East Asia, which covers East Asia from approximately the 10th through the 16th centuries. During this period, China, Korea, and Japan all developed in different ways after centuries of close interaction. While these societies continued to influence one another through trade, religion, and political ideas, each country also established its own identity. China entered a long period of political stability under powerful dynasties. Korea became one of the most deeply Confucian societies in East Asia, and Japan developed a unique warrior culture centered around the samurai. Together, these developments shaped the political and cultural foundations of East Asia for centuries to come. To understand this chapter, it's important to begin with the collapse of the Tang dynasty in 907. After the Tang fell, China entered a period of political division as several kingdoms competed for power. While this instability affected the region, neighboring countries began following their own paths. China eventually reunified under the Song dynasty. Korea strengthened its own government while adopting many Chinese political ideas, and Japan became increasingly independent from Chinese influence. Instead of one civilization dominating the region, East Asia evolved into several distinct but interconnected societies. Although these countries shared cultural traditions such as Confucianism and Buddhism, they each adapted those traditions differently. The Song dynasty was founded in 960 by Shao Kuangyin, who became known as Emperor Taizu. One of his main goals was preventing the military coups that had weakened previous dynasties. To accomplish this, he placed civilian officials above military leaders and created a much stronger centralized government, much like the United States has done in today. The Song government relied heavily on educated officials instead of powerful generals, making political administration more stable and organized. This system became the foundation for China's late imperial period, which would last for nearly 1,000 years. Even though the Song military was sometimes weaker than its rivals, the dynasty created one of the most efficient governments in Chinese history. Although the Song dynasty successfully unified much of China, it still faced serious challenges from neighboring states. Powerful groups such as Khitan Liao dynasty and the Tangut Western Xia controlled territory north and west of China. Rather than constantly fighting expensive wars, the Song government often chose diplomacy by paying tribute to maintain peace. During this period, Vietnam also secured lasting independence from Chinese rule. These developments demonstrate that while the Song government achieved remarkable internal stability, it had to accept that surrounding powers limited China's military influence. Despite these challenges, China's government remained politically strong and economically prosperous. One of the greatest achievements of the Song dynasty was its economic growth. During this period, China experienced what many historians describe as a commercial revolution. Trade expanded both within China and across Asia through busy ports such as Guangzhou. Merchants became wealthier than ever before, and Chinese goods such as silk, porcelain, tea, and manufactured products were exported throughout East Asia and beyond. Large cities grew rapidly as commerce increased, creating one of the world's most advanced urban economies. These economic changes made the Song dynasty one of the wealthiest and most technologically advanced civilizations of the medieval world. The Song dynasty was one of the most innovative periods in Chinese history. New technologies transformed everyday life, government, and trade. Woodblock printing made books much cheaper and easier to produce, allowing knowledge to spread far beyond the wealthy elite. Paper money became widely used, making commerce more efficient than relying only on coins. Iron production increased dramatically, providing stronger tools, weapons, and farming equipment. Gunpowder technology also improved during this period, although it was initially used more for military support than the firearms we think of today. Together, these innovations helped China become the technological leader of the medieval world and influenced neighboring societies throughout East Asia. Another important feature of the Song dynasty was of the expansion of the civil service examination system. Instead of inheriting government and positions because of their family status, many officials earned their jobs by passing difficult examinations based on Confucian teachings. This system emphasized education, hard work, and merit, creating a professional class of scholar officials known as mandarins, now like Napoleon did in France. Although wealthy families still had advantages because they could afford better education, the examination system provided greater opportunities than hereditary rule alone. As a result, education became one of the most respected pursuits in Chinese society, and the government benefited from a highly trained bureaucracy that helped maintain political stability for centuries. Alongside political and economic growth came an important intellectual movement known as Neo-Confucianism. This philosophy combined traditional Confucian ideas with certain Buddhist and Taoist concepts, while still emphasizing moral behavior, education, and personal responsibility. The philosopher Xiu Xi became the movement's most influential thinker by organizing Confucian teachings into a clear system that students could study throughout East Asia. Neo-Confucianism stressed that individuals should continuously improve themselves because personal morality ultimately strengthened families, governments, and society as a whole. Over time, this philosophy became the foundation for education, civil service examinations, and political thought in China, Korea, and later Japan. During the 13th century, East Asia experienced another major transformation with the rise of the Mongols. Under Genghis Khan, the Mongols united the nomadic tribes of the Eurasian steppe and created the largest contiguous land empire in history. His grandson, Kublai Khan, completed the conquest of China and established the Yuan dynasty in 1271. For the first time in Chinese history, the entire country was ruled by a foreign dynasty. Although many Chinese opposed Mongol rule, the conquest connected China more closely with Europe, the Middle East, and the rest of Asia through an enormous network of trade routes. This increased the exchange of goods, ideas, technology, and people across Eurasia. Under the Yuan dynasty, the Mongols maintained control by placing Mongols and other non-Chinese groups in many of the highest government positions. While this system helped preserve Mongol authority, it also created resentment among many Chinese citizens who had traditionally filled these roles. Despite political tensions, the Yuan period encouraged cultural exchange and international trade on an unprecedented scale. Merchants, travelers, and missionaries moved more freely across Eurasia than ever before. However, the empire also unintentionally helped spread disease along the same trade routes, including the plague that devastated much of Europe and Asia, known as the Black Plague. As economic problems and popular rebellions grew stronger, Mongol rule weakened, setting the stage for the rise of a new Chinese dynasty. By the mid-14th century, the Yuan dynasty was losing control of China because of economic hardships, natural disasters, and growing public dissatisfaction. One of the leaders who emerged during this period was Zhu Zhangzhao, a former Buddhist monk who joined the Red Turban Rebellion against Mongol rule. After successfully defeating the Mongols, he captured Beijing in 1368 and founded the Ming Dynasty. His victory restored Chinese rule after nearly a century of foreign domination. The Ming government strengthened central authority, rebuilt the economy, and re-established many traditional Chinese institutions. Although the early Ming emperors promoted stability and prosperity, they also became increasingly cautious about foreign influence, and later rulers adopted more isolationist policies that limited overseas activity. While China was experiencing major political changes, Korea followed its own unique path under the Goryeo dynasty. The Korean government adopted many Chinese political institutions, including Confucian ideas and civil service examinations. But it also preserved important Korean traditions and cultural practices. Buddhism remained extremely influential throughout Korean society, while Confucianism gradually became more important in government and education. This balance allowed Korea to benefit from Chinese ideas without losing its own identity. The Goryeo dynasty demonstrates how neighboring countries adopted Chinese civilization rather than simply copying it. Like China, Korea was eventually invaded by the Mongols. After years of resistance, the Goryeo kings accepted Mongol authority while remaining on the throne as subordinate rulers. Korea became closely connected to the Mongol Empire through royal marriages, political cooperation, and culture exchange. Interestingly, Mongol rule helped spread Neo-Confucianism ideas into Korea, which later became the foundation of the Korean government and education. As Mongol power weakened during the 14th century, Korean leaders successfully reasserted their independence while continuing to preserve many of the political and philosophical ideas they had adopted during this period. The Joseon dynasty was established in 1392 by General Yi Zongyi after he overthrew the Goryeo government. This dynasty would rule Korea for more than 5 centuries. One of its greatest rulers was King Sejong, who is remembered for creating the Hangul, the Korean alphabet, in 1446. Unlike Chinese writing, which required learning thousands of characters, Hangul was designed to be much easier to read and write. King Sejong also encouraged scientific research, agricultural improvements, and stronger government institutions. At the same time, Neo-Confucianism became the dominant philosophy, shaping the Korean education, family life, and politics for generations. Unlike China and Korea, Japan gradually shifted political power away from the imperial court and towards regional military leaders. As the central government became weaker, wealthy landowners relied on trained warriors, known as samurai, to protect their lands and enforce order. Over time, these warriors became one of the most influential social classes in Japan. The samurai followed a strict code of loyalty, discipline, and honor that later became known as Bushido, or the Way of the Warrior. Their growing influence marked the beginning of a military-centered political system that was unique to Japan. While the emperor remained an important cultural and religious symbol, real political power increasingly rested with military leaders. The struggle for control of Japan eventually led to the Genpei War, fought between the powerful Taira and Minamoto clans during the late 12th century. After several years of conflict, Minamoto no Yoritomo emerged victorious and established the Kamakura shogunate in 1192. This marked a turning point in Japanese history because the shogun became the country's true political ruler, while the emperor continued to serve as a symbolic figure. The Kamakura government depended on the loyalty of samurai, creating a feudal system in which military service was exchanged for land and protection. This political structure would shape Japan for several centuries and distinguish it from centralized governments of China and Korea. After the Kamakura shogunate declined, political power passed to the Ashikaga family, who established the Muromachi shogunate in the 14th century. Although this government never exercised the same level of authority as earlier regimes, it oversaw a remarkable period of cultural development. Zen Buddhism became increasingly popular among the samurai and influenced many aspects of Japanese life. Traditional arts such as the tea ceremony, rock gardens, ink paintings, and Noa theater flourished during this period. Trade with Ming China also resumed, bringing valuable goods and strengthening economic connections across East Asia. Even during times of political instability, Japan experienced a significant artistic and cultural achievements that continue to influence the country today. One of the most destructive events of the Muromachi period was the Onin War, which began in 1467 as a dispute over succession within the shogunate. The conflict devastated the city of Kyoto and severely weakened the authority of the Ashikaga government. As central power collapsed, regional lords known as daimyo gained independence and competed for territory and influence. This period of nearly constant warfare became known as the Warring States, or Sengoku period. Although it was marked by the violence and political fragmentation, it also encouraged military innovations and set the stage for the eventual reunification of Japan under powerful leaders in the 16th century. In conclusion, Chapter 5 demonstrates how China, Korea, and Japan developed along different paths while continuing to influence one another. China established a highly organized bureaucracy, promoted Neo-Confucianism, and became one of the world's leading centers of technology and commerce under the Song and Ming dynasties. Korea adopted many Chinese political and philosophical traditions while preserving its own culture and strengthening its identity through the Choson dynasty and the creation of the Hangul. Japan, meanwhile, developed a unique military government led by the samurai and shoguns, while also producing lasting cultural traditions shaped by the Zen Buddhism. Although each country responded differently to political challenges and foreign influences, all three contributed to the rich and diverse history of East Asia. The developments discussed in this chapter laid the foundations for the government, societies, and cultural traditions that continue to shape the region for centuries. Understanding these historical developments helps explain why East Asia became one of the world's most influential and interconnected regions. I do apologize for if I have had any mispronunciation with any of the names or phrases, but thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoy.